Welcome. This is Module 4, Topic 1, Lesson 1. A brand new module is what we're starting today. So, this is a fresh new start to get a solid, firm foundation and understanding of a whole new topic. And we're starting with probability. Now, if you will notice first when we start this lesson, there are a lot of key terms, and those we are about to get into, or most of them, in this activity here. We're starting with activity 1.1, calculating simple probabilities. All right, I'll go ahead and get us started. A six-sided number cube has one number from 1 through 6 on each face. Number cubes are often used when playing board games. I can think of a couple board games off the top of my head, but if you know some, name them. What kind of board games or where have you seen a six-sided dice like this? And as you're thinking of those board games, let's go ahead and answer question number 1. It says, create a list of all possible numbers. So, creating a list of all possible numbers that can appear on the top face if you roll a six-sided number cube. Now, remember, this would be one face. I don't know if my highlighting is very clear, but that part that I highlighted where that 3 is one side or one face. So think of all of the possible outcomes. Well, I know I can roll a 1. I can roll a 2. If you know the rest, go ahead and write them as I'm writing them as well. And you should have gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Simple. Let's continue. The numbers on the faces of a six-sided cube are the outcomes that can occur when rolling a six-sided number cube. Now I'm going to highlight this in green because this is one of those important vocabulary words that we need to take note of. An outcome, please highlight this, is the result of a single trial of a probability experiment. That is what an outcome is. So you do an experiment and whatever you get is your outcome. I'm sure we've heard that word before. And next, I'm going to use a different color. We have another vocabulary word. An experiment is a situation involving chance that leads to results or outcomes. So if I roll a dice, then I'm going to get an outcome. If I spin a wheel, then I'm going to get an outcome. If I choose a random number in a bag, then I'm going to get an outcome. All of those different situations are experiments. And we've got another vocabulary word, and this one's important. Well, they're all important. A list of all possible outcomes of an experiment is called a sample space. So let's go ahead and highlight that. Sample space. Say sample space. It is a list of all possible outcomes of an experiment. And I know I said that was an important one, but I didn't mean important. I just meant this might be new to you. Outcome, you've probably heard before. Experiment, you've heard before. But a sample space is new. And all that is just like it says, a list of the outcomes. And we're about to write an example of a sample space right now. So question number 2 says, list the sample space. Let me highlight that in purple. List the sample space for the experiment of rolling a six-sided number cube. And also take note of this note on the side here. It says, a sample space is typically enclosed with braces with commas in between the outcomes. So what that looks like is if I have a six-sided number cube, I'm going to first do okay, that looks bad. Wait a minute, let's do this again. There we go. Okay, a little better. We've got our braces or our brackets, however you want to call it, and then our sample space separated by commas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all possible outcomes if I roll a six-sided number cube. And that's how you would write a sample space. Alrighty, let's continue. An event, another vocabulary word. Let's use blue. An event is one possible outcome of a group or a group of possible outcomes for a given situation. And a simple event, running out of colors here. A simple event is an event consisting of one outcome. For example, and I'll explain this a little bit more, and also you'll get to practice using and putting into practice each of these vocabulary words. So, for example, in the number cube experiment, an event could be rolling an even number. Let me highlight that in blue. Let me underline it in blue. So, an event could be rolling an even number. Even. However, rolling a 5 is a simple event because you only can roll a 5 one time. So, a simple event is when you only have one and only one outcome. An event could lead me to more than one outcome. So whether that's an even number, I have several evens. Odd numbers, I have several odds. Prime numbers, 1 is a prime number, 3 is a prime number, 5 is a prime number. So those are just examples. A simple event is just one. An event can be more than one. All right, and now let's get into our last vocabulary word for this page. Let's use green, which is probability. Say probability. Probability. I hope you said it. All right, let's highlight this. This is what we're talking about in this whole topic here. It is a measure of the likelihood that an event will occur. So, probability, you've seen this before. I know you have. Think of when you're watching the news. When might they mention probability? Oh, today's going to be a 40% chance of rain, sunshine, whatever, right? That's probability. If you've ever seen an adult in your life play the lottery, that's probability. The chances are really, really low, but people do win, right? The probability of that is like 1 out of a million or something like that, right? Those are just small examples of probability. All right, let's continue. So probability is the measure of the likelihood that an event will occur. It is a way of assigning a numerical value to the chance that an event will occur. The probability of an event is often written as P parentheses event parentheses. For example, in the number cube experiment, the probability of rolling a 5 could be written as P parentheses 5 parentheses. The probability of rolling an even number could be P parentheses even parentheses. There is a formula to determine the probability of an event. Now, this formula, it might look complicated at first glance, but it's really not. It's just how we write probability. That's it. So probability is equal to the number of times an event can occur over the number of possible outcomes. Now, we are about to look on the next page at this worked example so that you can see an example of how you would write and find the probability of an event, or in this case, well, yes, an event. So at this time, what I want you to do is I want you to annotate this worked example. Annotate this worked example, read it, and then I want you to try to answer questions 3 and 4. Go ahead and set a timer for about 3 minutes. We will go over the worked example and also questions 3 and 4. So 3 minutes on the clock. Pause here. Alrighty, now that you've had time to read and annotate your worked example, we're going to look at questions number 3 and 4 to apply what we just read. All right, so in the worked example, they found the probability of an odd event. So using the same 6 sided number cube, what they did was they found that there were three possible outcomes, 1, 3, and 5, and they simply used the formula here to write their probability. So the probability of it being odd is equal to the number of times it can occur, which is 3 possible times, 1, 2, 3, out of a total of 6 total faces or 6 total outcomes. So the probability of rolling an odd number is 3 out of 6 or 1 out of 2, 1/2. Now, applying that same thing to 3 and 4, I went ahead and wrote my sample space in my brackets. So for number 3, it asks us, what is the probability of rolling a 4, or the probability P, parentheses, 4? Explain your reasoning. So the first thing we did, according to our steps, is to write our sample space, all possible outcomes. So I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all of my possible outcomes. And now I'm going to circle or just identify the probability of rolling a 4. Well, here's my 4, and I can clearly see that I can only get 4 how many times? Exactly. 1 out of a total of 6 times. So the probability of rolling a 4 is 1 out of 6. And a good practice or best practice when expressing probability is to say it just like that: 1 out of 6 or 1 over 6 instead of saying 1/6. It's just easier to understand. Okay, so now we figured out the probability of rolling a 4. Well, number 4 says, what is the probability of rolling a 6? Now, I could write the sample space again, but I'm just going to use the same sample space and just pretend that I wrote it there. Okay, you can do the same, but I'm going to go ahead and identify where my 6's are. Bam, found it. There is only 1 6. So this also means that the probability, I'm reading it just like I would any other equation, the probability of rolling a 6 or the outcome being a 6 is only 1 out of 6. And I'm going to erase this so it's not confusing. But 1 out of 6 is also the probability of rolling a 6. Now, you've read the worked example. You've seen me explain questions 3 and 4 and work through finding the probability of those two. Now, I want you to work on your own. So, you're going to complete number 5, 5A, 5B. Now, this is broken up here, so read carefully. It says determine the probability of rolling an even number. So, what that looks like, let's do something to help you get started here. The probability of rolling an even number would equal what? Hold on. Hold on. I want to write this in the space underneath. There we go. Okay. So which outcome or outcomes make up the event of rolling an even number? This is where you are going to write in your sample space: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then circle or find how many of those make up the event for an even number. And then here is where we're writing our formula or our equation. So the probability of rolling an even number is equal to possible outcomes over total outcomes. Now, I'm about to pause you in a second. You're going to complete number 5A, 5B. Then you're going to complete 6A and 6B. Here you're finding the probability of rolling a number that is not even. So that would look like the probability of it being not even. And then you're also going to complete 7A, 7B, 8A, and 8B. And then when you come back, we will compare our answers. Alrighty, I will leave it here with my worked example, I'll leave it here. That way you can see where you're starting and set the timer for about, let's say, 8 minutes. 8 minutes to complete 5A and B, 6A and B, 7A and B, and 8A and B. So don't waste your time. Get those 4 questions completed. 8 minutes on the clock. Pause here. Alrighty, now that you've had time to work, let's compare answers. So for number 5, the probability of rolling an even number, well, that is 3 out of 6 or 1 out of 2, which is what it simplifies to be, 1/2. Those even numbers are 2, 4, and 6. For number 6, numbers that are not even is just the opposite of what we just found. So those numbers are 1, 3, and 5. So the probability of it not being even is also 3 out of 6 because we circled 3 different outcomes. And that simplified to be 1/2 as well. So half of those numbers, I might have a chance of rolling a not even number. Number 7, the probability of rolling a number greater than 4 is 2 out of 6 because those numbers that are greater than 4 are only 5 and 6. And that simplifies to be 1 out of 3 when we divide the top and bottom by 2. And then lastly, the opposite of that is, well, determining the probability of a number that is not greater than 4. And here, if you circled only 1, 2, and 3, ask yourself, is 4 greater than 4? No. Is it less than 4? No, right? It's equal to. But in this case here, it's only asking about the numbers that are not greater than 4, which does include 4. So the probability of getting a number not greater than 4 is 4 out of 6, and that simplifies to be 2 out of 3. Alrighty, that concludes activity 1.1. Great job. I will see you in the next activity.